wicked conniving morning. Then you had your pocket full, in a bill there'll be morning. Now because you money, now you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I don't want you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joke up. Neighbor, neighbor, joke up. Neighbor, neighbor, joke up. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said morning neighbor, morning neighbor, morning, morning neighbor, morning, morning. I don't want you conniving morning. Oh Joseph.
Jim Ron's advice for young people who want to be rich. When I was around 12, there was an old poor man in my town. Oftentimes when I was on my way to school or returning in the afternoon, I would see this old, rejected and depressed man coming from or going to the farm. His clothes were always dirty. He walked slowly because he was probably in his late 70s and he rarely smiled. Whenever I saw that man, I would tell myself, I would rather die young than to be old and be like this man. So at the early age, I was lucky enough to know that if I run away from difficult situations when I'm young, I'll do difficult things when I'm old. I will share with you some other details about this story as I try to challenge you with one of the best advice of Jim Ron, which I believe can make you rich. Now, if you're new here, consider subscribing so you won't miss other interesting videos like this. Here's the thing. Out of many advice given by Jim Ron in his 79 years lifetime, I think the most important of them is you must suffer one of two things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Don't be mistaken about this. You've got no escape route. In your life, you will suffer. In your life, you'll go through pains. In your life, you'll cry. But you have the choice. You can choose to suffer the pains that come from being disciplined, or wait for the pains that come from poverty, loneliness, depression, and failure. You must suffer one of two things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Tomorrow is far. I once watched a young man on TV who was doing what was obviously wrong. When he was asked how he would feel at 70, looking back at his present errors, he said, "Well, I still have about 50 years before I regret." This sounds so stupid, but we all do similar things in our life because we think that tomorrow is far. Don't deceive yourself. Tomorrow is now. If you are too young, go and ask people who are 50 and above. I tell you, these people didn't know how they clocked 50 because time goes so fast. I once read a quote from Robert Kiyosaki that went something like, "If you know what it means to be old, you would live well when you are young." I think you should think about that and be willing to go through the pains of discipline now. The truth is, most young people don't know what it means to be old. Being old means that many of your friends have died. Many are sick, so they cannot leave home. Many are too old to even think of visiting you, so you are lonely. You may also have one or two health challenges, which need a lot of money to manage. There are so many worries in your old age than to still worry about money or to have regrets about missed opportunities. Why we hate discipline. By nature, humans are lazy. I mean, all of us are. We love the TV and not the boring books. We love the social media and not the workout. We prefer the talking and complaining and never the grinding and pursuing. We love the ease and the comfort zone and not the harsh world. That's why we avoid the pains of discipline. But your life will change right now if you can think about this. Well, there's no escape route. As human, you are like a soldier. You can never avoid battle. If you don't go out to fight, the enemy will come and attack you at home, and that will be 10 times more difficult. As humans, if you don't get out and be disciplined, if you don't do whatever you ought to do even if it's difficult, if you don't read those books, if you don't practice that music several hours every day, if you don't start that business even when it's tough, if you live like a coward and wish that your life should change by miracle, well, two things will happen. First, someone else will use you to pursue his own dreams, and just when he finishes using you, he will dump you into poverty and frustration. Seeing tomorrow. You see, I spent most part of my last 1 decade going through some of the most difficult situations you can ever imagine. And guess what? I did it on purpose. I closed my eyes when I was 21 and threw myself out. I told myself, build your own company or die trying. It was not a half-hearted decision. I had no space in my heart to make excuses or wait for a government to help me. I knew what was at stake, and that is my future and my life. I wanted freedom. I wanted a life of my own. I wanted a life which allows me to sleep and wake up at my own time. I wanted a life which will allow me work when I want to and with whom I want to. I didn't want a life that worries about money. I didn't want a life that hates his job and only works for money. I don't just want to live. I wanted to live with purpose. And to do this, I understood that I mustn't make excuses or wait for a miracle. I understood that I will have to get out, fight hard, get wounded, fall, fail and cry. I knew that to wear a crown, I had to carry a cross, and I was not afraid of the pains that come with the cross because I could see tomorrow. Most young people cannot see beyond today, and that's the reason why they complain and make excuses. If you, like me, can look around you and see old people who have died, who have lived their lives as cowards, and see the pains they are going through now, you will not be a coward. If you look around you and see people who dreamed of starting their own business all their life, but never try or gave up when they failed twice, now in their 70s, after working all their life in the jobs they hate, they are still poor, then you will understand the pains of regret. You must suffer. Yes, you must suffer one or two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Living in the world of cowards. Don't ever think that you see some examples of courage in your primary environment, because not many courageous people exist in the world. Most people are cowards and live their life avoiding difficulties. The problem about this is that it's contagious. Take for instance, I know a family whose child is a talented writer. Instead of letting this child pursue her dream of becoming a great writer, the parents still want her to study normal things every other kid is studying in school. What's happening here is simple. The parents are cowards, so they cannot encourage their kids to pursue risky dreams. They know that there is no security for anyone who pursues his dreams outside the normal route everyone knows. For example, there's security for you if you study to become an accountant, because you can get a job and get paychecks for 30 years. There's security for you if you study to become a lawyer, doctor, or an engineer. But there's no security for you if you want to become a musician, because you may never become a famous musician, and that means failure. There's no security for you if you want to become a writer, an athlete, or an entrepreneur. In all these, you are taking a great risk, and the natural thing to do in our society is to calm down and follow the path everyone is following, or have plan B. Plan B means that even if you want to be an entrepreneur, go get a degree first, so that if you fail in business, you can easily get a job. The problem about this way of thinking is that Plan B will always distract you from Plan A. I left school without any degree because I didn't want to be employable. I knew if I was employable, I could easily stop pursuing my entrepreneurial dream whenever the road becomes rough. But because I had no degree, I knew that I didn't have Plan B. Because I didn't have Plan B, I fought with my last blood and I won. You must suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Which would you choose? The discipline today or the regret tomorrow? Thank you so much for watching our videos. Are you between the ages of 15 and 40? Then we invite you to join our new channel, which was specially created to share with you inspiration and life's lessons to succeed in life. We call it Under 40 TV. Kindly look at the description box below this video to join the Under 40 TV. We love you.
Few human creations represent the peak of globalization as well as the sovereign wealth fund. The world's 90-odd sovereign wealth funds have gained significant clout over the past 2 decades. Together, they oversee more than $8 trillion in assets, equivalent to around 10% of the global gross domestic product. But exactly what is a sovereign wealth fund? Let's break it down. Sovereignty is the power of a nation to self-govern. Nations utilize this power by making and applying laws, imposing taxes, engaging in war, and participating in trade. As a result, just as Adam Smith predicted, own investment purposes. Governments invest this money in companies and real estate all over the world to benefit their country's economy and citizens. So where exactly does this money come from in the first place? Well, the nation accumulates money in its central bank reserves from budget and trade surpluses or other sources of revenue. Most efficiently managed governments do not have big surpluses of money in their reserves unless they have abundant income. For example, many of the oil-rich countries, such as Norway, Russia, and countries in the Middle East, have created sovereign wealth funds to invest the money coming into their countries from oil. The first country in the world to start a sovereign wealth fund was Kuwait. Right after Kuwait discovered oil, it decided to establish a fund in 1953 to invest its excess oil revenues. It soon became one of the wealthiest nations in the world. In 1990, the tiny Persian Gulf country was invaded and occupied by Iraq, and then freed by 35 nations led by the United States. And yes, this war really was about oil and the wealthy funds that come with it. With a population of only 4.1 million, Kuwait remains sovereign today, and its sovereign wealth fund is estimated to be one of the largest funds in the world, sitting at over $500 billion. East Asian countries like China, Hong Kong, and Singapore are also known for having sovereign wealth funds. Unlike their oil-wielding counterparts, these countries got their excess reserves from the Asian export boom. As they began exporting more than they imported, the East Asian countries had a lot of money lying around. So, they set up their sovereign wealth funds to send their excess funds to financial markets around the world and make more and more funds. However, just as sovereign wealth funds represent the peak of globalization and a great way for a nation to diversify its wealth, they may represent the low point of globalization as well in a post-COVID world. As global trade is clearly facing steep hurdles and a tense political climate, sovereign wealth funds may be seen more as the minions of nations out to do their bidding, as opposed to independent merchants just looking to make a buck. For example, the delicate relations between China and other countries might make foreign governments think twice before taking cash from one of China's sovereign wealth funds. Gary Smith, managing director at Sovereign Focus, a sovereign wealth fund advisement firm, puts it this way. In the current climate, it is unlikely that a state-owned investment vehicle, aka a sovereign wealth fund, will be able to achieve a better overall assessment than that of the sovereign nation that owns it. In other words, if my country has conflict with your country, then my financial market has conflict with your country's sovereign wealth fund. While the fate and fortune of sovereign wealth funds remains uncertain, their success as an important global investment vehicle remains undisputed. Collectively, they are twice the size of all hedge funds combined, have power to move the overall market, and impact global economic and political policy the world around. Thanks, Adam Smith.
Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Lunta Di La Paulo and I am accountant consultant here in Chicago. But above everything else, I am African, Angolan, and in this YouTube channel, I usually share about different topics from my views on economics, political trends across the continent and so forth. And sometimes, rarely I do it, but I like to share some motivation to the entrepreneurial community across the continent. And today, my hope and my goal with this video is to share a little bit about the Angolan Sovereign Fund. So just to give you a quick background into this fund, it was set up in the year 2012 by the then president of the Angolan government, the head of the state, President José Eduardo dos Santos. He set up this fund in 2012 with the hope of using some of the revenues from oil to help future generations. So, you know, across the world, many countries have these so-called sovereign funds that invest across the world in different assets to ensure that the country will start diversify their economy to also give future generations something to live on in case their natural resources runs out, right? So you've heard probably about the Qatar's sovereign fund, the Saudi Arabia sovereign fund, and other large funds across the world are out there. And many of them are in hundreds of billions of dollars and so forth. So the Angolan government launched this fund again in 2012 with $5 billion in asset. So this fund have been managed since then by different investment groups, but due to lack of transparency, we don't actually know who managed these funds. But here's some of the information that I thought is really interesting to look at. And I would encourage other Africans across the continent to look into where their governments are putting money, are investing in terms of assets. And here's one thing that to me was shocking, right? To look into where the investment is being made. So the Angolan Sovereign Fund, as you can see here in this chart, they have invested in every single continent across the world, but almost nothing is invested in Africa, literally. North America accounts for 50% of the fund's investments. Europe accounts for another 19%, Asia 16%, multiple continents, we don't know what those are, 13%. And then you have the Australian continent, you have South America, and Africa is marginally inexistent. And we're also seeing, you know, where they're investing in hedge funds, in some other global investment funds, in money markets, in fixed income type of instruments and securities, and the different sectors where they are investing: finance, government funds, other funds, technology, large-scale industry and production, and so forth. So, you know, I think as an African fund, I think they should have been allocating a large part of the investment to invest inside the continent. So this is already a problem itself. The continent doesn't have enough infrastructure, but they invest their capital into other continents. So I don't think that's a good move from the sovereign fund. But here's another thing that I found really intriguing, right? The fund doesn't have audited financial statements. I found their reports about the funds, right? So they have here some of the reports, I believe, and I was able to get some of the reports they have included here. So there is a big gap there, by the way. No audited financials at all. They have reports based on each trimester, right? For the year 2017, for the year 2016, for the year 2015, 2014, nothing from the year 2012, the year that the fund was launched, nothing for 2013. And then you also notice that after 2017, there is no reports whatsoever. The only report we see later is in 2021. So let's look into what these reports show, okay? So in 2017, these amounts are in millions of US dollar. As you can see, let me make this larger. So here's what we're seeing, right, in terms of this report. So as I said, there is no audited financials, unfortunately, but this is what the current board has provided to the rest of us to see how the sovereign fund has been doing. So unfortunately, again, nothing in English, but I'll do my best to help you get a sense of what is going on. So ativo means, you know, asset, passivo liabilities, and fundos próprios, that's your capital of the fund. And then resultados is basically your P&L. That's what's going on. So in 2017, we're seeing the fund has 5.034 billion in total assets, and the large part of the assets, we can see 2.3 billion of these 5 billion were allocated to investment in subsidiaries, and then we have 1.9 billion in financial asset in joint venture, and then another huge part of asset we are seeing that was put into money market, as well as kind of certificates of deposits in a way. That's kind of the easiest translation, right? So almost $1 billion respectively into money markets, really. And then when we look into the liabilities of the entity, there is some interest liabilities, there is some vendors liability. So they paid about 73 million in vendors. I would be curious to see who are those vendors that are being paid 73 million. $73 million for these funds. Is it technology support? Is it infrastructure? And then they have about 98 million in compensation, right, that we're seeing. It would be really interesting to see, you know, who are being paid these amounts, and, you know, what the justification for these expenses. And then the fund had its own was launched at 5.2 billion. That's at least what they're telling us. And the fund had about 52.6 million in revenues, 42 million in operational expense. So, you know, and we don't really have much. So this is basically what they gave us here was balance de verificación, like a trial balance in a way, right? So that's what I was looking at. And here's what is really interesting though. From 2017, you know, from a $5 billion fund, in 2021, this fund is only worth 2.9 billion. So it literally, you know, almost 2 billion decline in assets. So where that 2 billion went, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but you know, the lack of audited financials, you know, complete financial statement, I think to me that raises a lot of red flags, and I wonder where the 2 billions went. As an Angolan, as an African, I think it's pretty concerning. And the presentation of the financial also changed. You know, now we don't know where this investment into subsidiaries, 2.3 billion went, because we're not seeing it here. we're still seeing these investment in joint venture kind of still there. But we saw also a decline. We don't know whether or not they sold those investments or not. Any of the money markets, they changed drastically these. So, and then in the liability side, you know, everything just looks different. And then, you know, from the 5.2 billion that the fund was launched, now we're only seeing about 2.5 billion. So at the end of the day, right, there are a lot of questions unanswered in this fund. Thanks God they provided a more detailed P&L this time around. We're seeing some decent revenue generation, mainly coming from interest instrument. But I'm thinking if this is interest revenue, then they held a lot of bonds and fixed income type of securities. And then we have, you know, some operating expenses coming up here, but that's really what we have here. At the end of the day, you know, I would have hoped to see a sovereign fund actually having audited financial statements than simply giving trial balance or unaudited financial statements. And then, you know, the gap on the financial reporting is really concerning. So to the Angolan government, I would hope that they are actually looking into these things and paying attention how the investment of what is supposed to be public fund for future generations is going, and make sure people are actually answering some of these questions. So I hope this video helped us get a little bit of understanding of the Angolan sovereign fund, and I'd love to hear your comments. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do. And I try to create a little bit of content every here and there. If you wanna stay in touch, reach out to me. I'd love to connect and hear your perspective. The next video I'll be doing on Sonangol, Angola's largest company, still state-owned. So we're gonna look into that in the next video, maybe next week. So we'll see. It's been great doing this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoy making it. I will see you soon.
The coast of Cabinda is a massive cranes, lorries, excavators and high-visibility jackets, all the hallmarks of a construction boom. It is a remarkable transformation for Angola, which endured decades of civil war that only came to an end in 2002. Slowly being assembled on the coastline is Port of Caio, an ambitious deep-sea harbor project that reflects a vision of the country's future as a beacon of prosperity on the west coast of Africa. Giving an interview in the middle of the construction zone is Jean-Claude Bastos de Moraes, who is describing how the port will benefit the whole of Angola. As the owner and manager of the facility, Bastos and his company also stand to benefit handsomely. Bastos recounts how after personally spending about $70 million, £53 million on preliminary costs, mostly for various technical stuff, we then looked for a strategic long-term partner who could help us in the next phases of this investment, and as a result, we invited the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Angola to invest. Port of Caio map. Although undeniably true, it is an answer that neglects to mention that the cash of the Angolan Sovereign Wealth Fund invited to invest in his deep-sea port is managed by a company called Quantum Global, owned and controlled by Bastos. He also stands to benefit in other instances, because the investment is one of at least 4 identified in the Paradise Papers in which Angolan funds managed by Bastos were invested in assets in which he held an interest. Bastos does not dispute any of this. Indeed, in a letter to The Guardian, he argued that as a shareholder in the investments, his goals were aligned with those of the fund, and he also volunteered that new investments were currently under discussion. Due to ongoing discussions with various stakeholders to develop new investment projects where I directly own a stake, I can't disclose new details at this point in time, he said. However, he objected to any characterization of the above as conflicts of interest. We do not view these investments as conflicted. We view these investments as having aligned interests. All shareholders' interests are aligned for the growth and ultimate success of every investment. Though perfectly legal, such arrangements raise uneasy questions about public accountability, particularly in Angola, where the ruling elite, and those with whom they choose to surround themselves, have been able to accrue the most extraordinary private wealth while ordinary citizens suffer grinding poverty. José Eduardo dos Santos, the country's president from 1979 until earlier this year, is the father to Africa's richest woman, Isabel dos Santos, whose estimated $3.4 billion fortune is likely to grow after her father appointed her to run the state oil company. By contrast, the outlook for ordinary Angolan women is bleak. The maternal mortality rate is one of the world's highest at 610 per 100,000 births. Meanwhile, 20% of children before the age of 5, most of them from malnutrition. Bastos believes venture capitalism represents a solution to Angela's challenges. Born in Switzerland in 1967, he describes how his heritage inspired him to apply his talent for the world of finance to the challenge of African development. Isabel dos Santos, Africa's richest woman, who runs Angela's state oil company. Photograph Toby Melville. Reuters. Growing up, I had promised my late Angolan grandmother that I would do my part to give back to Africa, he says on his website. I have made it my life's focus to fulfill that promise. He appears to have committed significant personal resources towards this end, creating the African Innovation Foundation, which awards annual prizes to inventors, as well as the African Law Library, which provides free, easy access to legislation. In 2012, Dos Santos announced the formalization of the Fundo Soberano de Angola FSDEA, a $5 billion sovereign wealth fund that would promote growth, prosperity and social and economic development across Angola. Appointed as chairman of the fund's board of directors was José Filomeno dos Santos, 34, the president's son. Selected to manage the fund's endowment was Quantum Global. Little known outside its role managing investments for the Angolan Central Bank, Quantum received the contract without competitive tender. This was not uncontroversial. Critics observed that Bastos had previously founded and managed Angola's first investment bank, Banco Quantum Capital, where the president's son was appointed as a director. He resigned the position and sold his shares upon becoming FSDEA chairman. The two men are said to be friends, and Bastos has been described as a mentor to the younger Dos Santos. Bastos denied that his relationship with the former president's son had played any role in the appointment. What are the Paradise Papers? Video. The true reason for Quantum's selection was that it performed extremely well on an investment management mandate for the Angolan Central Bank during the recession, he said. The FSDEA said Quantum had been selected because of its outstanding performance on previous mandates with the Angolan authorities. The $3 billion assigned to Quantum was divided into 7 funds for different types of investment, including infrastructure, hotels and timber. In 2014, during which only 2 of the funds were active for 7 months, Quantum received management fees of $29 million. For the same period, $13 million appears to have been paid in dividends to QG Investment Limited, a company incorporated in the British Virgin Islands and owned by Bastos. As far as the payments to me are concerned, I am earning, as any other shareholder, the dividends out of the distributions of my companies, he said. He said Quantum was compensated according to industry standards and all fees had been properly disclosed and audited by Deloitte. The internal mechanics of Quantum were that for each of the 7 funds, an investment committee staffed by Bastos and others would advise on investments. It is the minutes of those investment committee meetings, contained in the Paradise Papers, that reveal that on at least 3 occasions besides Port of Cayo, Bastos' firm decided the money would be invested in projects in which he held an interest. In 2015, it was decided that the hotel fund would invest in the high-tech tower in the center of Angola's capital, Luanda. Architectural proposals for the project are breathtaking. 2 futuristic towers, intended to be the country's tallest buildings upon completion, stand atop a planned 4-story shopping center. José Eduardo dos Santos addresses party supporters in Kamama, outside the Angolan capital, Luanda, in 2012. Photograph Sifiwa Sibicor. Reuters. According to a signed document in the Paradise Papers, the hotel fund agreed to spend $157 million to buy into the project, $100 million of which was in the form of assumption of debt already incurred by another project investor called High Tech Tower One Limited. The remaining $57 million would be paid in cash installments once HTT1 received the rights to the land on which the project would be built, this time from yet another company called Afrique Corporation SA. The beneficial owner of both HTT1 and Afrique was Bastos. In another project, the committee decided in December 2014 to recommend an investment in a proposed 3- or 4-star hotel in Cabinda, near the Port of Cayo development. A total of $20 million would be spent to enter an investment agreement alongside a company called Mesomi Tchoa SA. That company's owner is unknown, and there is no evidence that it belonged to Bastos. However, the Paradise Papers show he abstained from voting on the investment on the grounds that he held a conflict of interest. And in another instance, Quantum recommended that FSDEA's timber fund commit up to $89 million to a pine and eucalyptus plantation. Once again, Bastos recused himself from deliberations due to a conflict of interest, and the investment committee voted in favor of spending several $100,000 on an initial due diligence budget. Bastos said he had stepped down from the investment committee in 2016 due to a more well-defined structure put in place by the group. He said he had correctly disclosed all personal interests in projects in which FSDEA had become an investor, and FSDEA had not paid any brokerage or finder's fees for the investments where he also held a stake. If the port project, he said, the why disclosed financial benefits I will rightly derive as the initial shareholder who built this project into a solid investment will pale in comparison to the economic benefits the Port of Cayo will deliver to Angola and the people of Cabinda. Quick guide, thank you for your feedback. He said his investment in the high-tech tower represented his belief in the country's long-term potential, and the financing structure underpinning the partnership had since changed. The Paradise Papers identify another unusual wrinkle in both the cases in which Bastos recused himself from the committee due to conflicts of interest. Another member of the committee, Thomas Ayton, is the chief financial officer of a small Swiss company called Turtle Management AG, which happens to be the private family office of Bastos, incorporated for the sole purpose of managing his personal wealth. Ayton, who has never been publicly associated with FSDEA or Quantum Global, did not recuse himself. Bastos declined to explain why this was not considered a conflict of interest, but said Ayton had a long-standing experience in Africa and is qualified to advise and challenge investment proposals brought to the investment committee within the well-established investment process. It is important to understand that while foreign investors may see challenges in Africa, African investors like myself see these as significant opportunities, he said. I believe African investors can play a major role in transforming the state of the continent.
You all know the truth of what I'm going to say. I think the intuition that inequality is divisive and socially corrosive has been around since before the French Revolution. What's changed is we now can look at the evidence, we can compare societies, more and less equal societies, and see what inequality does. I'm going to take you through that data and then explain why the links that I think I'm going to be showing you exist. But first, see what a miserable lot we are. I want to start, though, with a paradox. This shows you life expectancy against gross national income, how rich countries are on average. And you see the countries on the right, like Norway and the USA, are twice as rich as Israel, Greece, Portugal on the left. And it makes no difference to their life expectancy at all. There's no suggestion of a relationship there. But if we look within our societies, there are extraordinary social gradients in health, running right across society. This again is life expectancy. These are small areas of England and Wales, the poorest on the right, the richest on the left. Not a difference between the poor and the rest of us. Even the people just below the top have less good health than the people at the top. So income means something very important within our societies and nothing between them. The explanation of that paradox is that within our societies we're looking at relative income or social position, social status, where we are in relation to each other, and the size of the gaps between us. And as soon as you've got that idea, you should immediately wonder, what happens if we widen the differences or compress them, make the income differences bigger or smaller? And that's what I'm going to show you. I'm not using any hypothetical data. I'm taking data from the UN, it's the same as the World Bank has, on the scale of income differences in these rich developed market democracies. The measure we've used, just because it's easy to understand and you can download it, is how much richer the top 20% than the bottom 20% in each country. And you see in the more equal countries, on the left, Japan, Finland, Norway, Sweden, the top 20% are about 3.5, 4 times as rich as the bottom 20%. But at the more unequal end, UK, Portugal, USA, Singapore, the differences are twice as big. On that measure, we are twice as unequal as some of the other successful market democracies. Now I'm going to show you what that does to our societies. We collected data on problems with social gradients, the kind of problems that are more common at the bottom of the social ladder. Internationally comparable data on life expectancy, on kids' maths and literacy scores, on infant mortality rates, homicide rates, proportion of the population in prison, teenage birth rates, levels of trust, obesity, mental illness, which in the standard diagnostic classification includes drug and alcohol addiction, and social mobility. We put them here all in one index. They're all weighted equally. Where a country is a sort of average score on these things. And there you see it in relation to the measure of inequality I've just shown you, which I shall use over and over again in the data. The more unequal countries doing worse on all these kinds of social problems. It's an extraordinarily close correlation. But if you look at that same index of health and social problems in relation to GNP per capita, gross national income, there's nothing there. No correlation anymore. We were a little bit worried that people might think we'd been choosing problems to suit our argument and just manufactured this evidence. So we also looked we did a paper in the British Medical Journal on the UNICEF Index of Child Wellbeing. It has 40 different components put together by other people. It contains whether kids can talk to their parents, whether they have books at home, what immunization rates are like, whether there's bullying at school. Everything goes into it. Here it is in relation to that same measure of inequality. Kids doing worse in the more unequal societies, highly significant relationship. But once again, if you look at that measure of child well-being in relation to national income per person, there's no relationship, no suggestion of a relationship. What all the data I've shown you so far says is the same thing. The average well-being of our societies is not dependent any longer on national income and economic growth. That's very important in poorer countries, but not in the rich developed world. But the differences between us and where we are in relation to each other now matter very much. I'm going to show you some of the separate bits of our index. Here, for instance, is trust. It's simply the proportion of the population who agree most people can be trusted. It comes from the World Values Survey. You see at the more unequal end, it's about 15% of the population who feel they can trust others. But in the more equal societies, it rises to 60 or 65%. And if you look at measures of involvement in community life or social capital, very similar relationships, closely related to inequality. I may say we did all this work twice. We did it first on these rich developed countries, and then as a separate test bed, we repeated it all on the 50 American states, asking just the same question. Do the more unequal states do worse on all these kinds of measures? So here is trust from the General Social Survey of the federal government related to inequality. Very similar scatter over a similar range of levels of trust. Same thing is going on. Basically, we found that almost anything that's related to trust internationally is related to trust amongst the 50 states in that separate test bed. We're not just talking about a fluke. This is mental illness. WHO put together figures using the same diagnostic interviews on random samples of the population to allow us to compare rates of mental illness in each society. This is the percent of the population with any mental illness in the preceding year. And it goes from about 8% up to 3 times that. Whole societies with 3 times the level of mental illness of others. And again, closely related to inequality. This is violence. These red dots are American states and the blue triangles are Canadian provinces. But look at the scale of the differences. It goes from 15 homicides per million up to 150. This is the proportion of the population in prison. There's about a 10-fold difference there, log scale up the side, but it goes from about 40 to 400 people in prison. That relationship is not mainly driven by more crime. In some places that's part of it. But most of it is about more punitive sentencing, harsher sentencing. And the more unequal societies are more likely also to retain the death penalty. Here we have children dropping out of high school. Again, quite big differences, extraordinarily damaging if you're talking about using the talents of the population. This is social mobility. It's actually a measure of mobility based on income. Basically, it's asking, do rich fathers have rich sons and poor fathers have poor sons? Or is there no relationship between the two? And at the more unequal end, father's income is much more important. In the UK, USA, and in countries, the Scandinavian countries, father's income is much less important. There's more social mobility. And as we like to say, and I know there are a lot of Americans in the audience here, if Americans want to live the American dream, they should go to Denmark. I've shown you just a few things in italics here. I could have shown you a number of other problems. They're all problems that tend to be more common at the bottom of the social gradient. But there are endless problems with social gradients that are worse in more unequal countries. Not just a little bit worse, but anything from twice as common to 10 times as common. Think of the expense, the human cost of that. I want to go back, though, to this graph that I showed you earlier, where we put it all together, to make 2 points. One is that in graph after graph, we find that the countries that do worst, whatever the outcome, seem to be the more unequal ones. And the ones that do well seem to be the Nordic countries and Japan. So what we're looking at is general social dysfunction related to inequality. It's not just 1 or 2 things that go wrong, it's most things. The other really important point I want to make on this graph is that if you look at the bottom, Sweden and Japan, they're very different countries in all sorts of ways. The position of women, how closely they keep to the nuclear family. They're at opposite ends of the poles in terms of the rich developed world. But another really important difference is how they get their greater equality. Sweden has huge differences in earnings, and it narrows the gap through taxation, generous welfare states, generous benefits, and so on. Japan is rather different, though. It starts off with much smaller differences in earnings before tax. It has lower taxes. It has a smaller welfare state. And in our analysis of the American states, we find rather the same contrast. There are some states that do well through redistribution, some states that do well because they have smaller income differences before tax. So we conclude that it doesn't much matter how you get your greater equality as long as you get there somehow. I'm not talking about perfect equality, I'm talking about what exists in rich, developed market democracies. Another really surprising part of this picture is that it's not just the poor who are affected by inequality. There seems to be some truth in John Donne's "No Man is an Island." In a number of studies, it's possible to compare how people do in more and less equal countries at each level in the social hierarchy. This is just one example. It's infant mortality. Some Swedes very kindly classified a lot of their infant deaths according to the British Registrar General's socioeconomic classification. And so it's anachronistically a classification by father's occupation, so single parents go on their own. But then the low, where it says low social class, that's unskilled manual occupations. It goes through towards the skilled manual occupations in the middle, then the junior non-manual, going up the high to the professional occupations, doctors, lawyers, directors of larger companies. You see there that Sweden does better than Britain all the way across the social hierarchy. The biggest difference is at the bottom of society, but even at the top, there seems to be a small benefit to being in a more equal society. We show that on about 5 different sets of data covering educational outcomes and health in the United States and internationally. And that seems to be the general picture, that greater equality makes most difference at the bottom, but has some benefit even at the top. But I should say a few words about what's going on. I think I'm looking and talking about the psychosocial effects of inequality, more to do with feelings of superiority and inferiority, of being valued and devalued, respected and disrespected. And of course, those feelings of the status competition that comes out of that drives the consumerism in our society. It also leads to status insecurity. We worry more about how we're judged and seen by others, whether we're regarded as attractive, clever, all that kind of thing. The social evaluative judgments increase, the fear of those social evaluative judgments. Interestingly, some parallel work going on in social psychology. Some people reviewed 208 different studies in which volunteers had been invited into a psychological laboratory and had their stress hormones, their responses to doing stressful tasks measured. And in the review, what they were interested in seeing is what kind of stressors most reliably raise levels of cortisol, the central stress hormone. And the conclusion was it was tasks that included social evaluative threats to self-esteem or social status in which others can negatively judge your performance. Those kind of stressors have a very particular effect on the physiology of stress. Now, we have been criticized. Of course, there are people who dislike this stuff and people who find it very surprising. I should tell you, though, that when people criticize us for picking and choosing data, we never pick and choose data. We have an absolute rule that if our data source has data for one of the countries we're looking at, it goes into the analysis. Our data source decides whether it's reliable data. We don't. Otherwise, that would introduce bias. What about other countries? There are 200 studies of health in relation to income inequality in the academic peer-reviewed journals. This isn't confined to these countries here, providing a very simple demonstration of the same countries, the same measure of inequality, one problem after another. Why don't we control for other factors? Well, we've shown you that GNP per capita doesn't make any difference. And of course, others using more sophisticated methods in the literature have controlled for poverty and education and so on. What about causality? Correlation in itself doesn't prove causality. We spend a good bit of time, and indeed people know the causal links quite well in some of these outcomes. The big change in our understanding of drivers of health in the rich developed world is how important chronic stress from social sources is, affecting the immune system, the cardiovascular system. Or, for instance, the reason why violence becomes more common in more unequal societies is because people are sensitive to being looked down on. I should say that to deal with this, we've got to deal with the post-tax things and the pre-tax things. We've got to constrain income, the bonus culture, incomes at the top. I think we must make bosses accountable to their employees in any way we can. I think the take-home message, though, is that we can improve the real quality of human life by reducing the differences in incomes between us. Suddenly we have a handle on the psychosocial well-being of whole societies, and that's exciting. Thank you.
It happens to me all the time, and it happened just this week. A young person I'd never met introduced himself to me and said that when he saw our guest today on an earlier episode of this program, he felt he was seeing a man who knew how to think. Dr. Thomas Sowell on Uncommon Knowledge now. Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge. I'm Peter Robinson. Thomas Sowell has studied and taught economics, intellectual history, and social policy at institutions that include Cornell, Brandeis, UCLA, and Amherst. Now a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, Dr. Sowell has published more than a dozen books.
Because your money done, you come with conniving morning. Then you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I don't want you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. That's all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
morning. How are you do? Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. I need some light in this place. Let there be light. Not everybody can stand light. Some people like to exist in the dark. You call them vampires. Well, nocturnal creatures. Right? Nocturnal creatures. Beware of the nocturnal creatures. Morning, welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. It is 7 hours 19 on the 29th day of December in the year 2021. 29th day. It's a very, 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 very important day. Very important day for the people of this country. Also, it's a very important day for many of us who lived under the PPP of past. And so I'm coming to you from Buxton on a very important day. You know what I mean? What Guyanese do today will ultimately determine the quality of life we have moving forward compared to the politicians, compared to the friends of the politicians, compared to the children of the politicians. And while I'm saying politicians broadly, I'm saying by extension the enablers, and more specifically the politicians who currently control the national purse. Because I believe that unless we do something and we do it quickly, even if there were to be a change in government in another year, perhaps 2 years, or if the PPP is allowed to go for a 5-year term, there will be nothing, absolutely nothing, for those who replace the PPP to do much for this country with. Understand me. I am saying, it's my firm belief, that unless a stance is taken today to stop the runaway train called the PPP, whenever the PPP is booted out of office, there will be absolutely nothing for the new administration to use to really and truly improve the lives of Guyanese. Campaigning for the 2015 elections, Guyanese were promised a good life. Based on projections of the David Granger-led coalition, Guyanese were going to get a good life. That is what was promised. Many will argue that the journey to the good life had begun. Yet there are many who will say they never experienced the good life. The good life was only a dream. Well, I'm saying no. that dependent on what Guyanese do today, the good life will not only remain a dream, but perhaps become a nightmare. What kind of nightmare are you talking about? Talking about a nightmare where the haves would be so far apart from the haves not, where the wealth of the country will be concentrated in the hands of so few, that the majority would be wallowing in poverty and face the consequences of us not acting against the PPP and stopping this runaway train in its tracks in a definitive and decisive way today. You know, I like to say, let me draw the nexus. I like to draw the nexus. It's quite revealing or frightening if dependent on which angle you see it from. That in this sitting of the Parliament, of the National Assembly, in this session, the PPP is seeking to bring 2 bills to Parliament. One has to do with harvesting human organs, organ harvesting. And the other has to do with coveting the finances of this country, which is coming from oil production. People don't see the nexus. I'll tell you what that nexus is. You look around the world and you look in countries where the nation's resources are controlled by a small few, where the income gap is so wide that there's the super rich and there's the abysmally poor. Look at that. And what do you find happening? What do you find happening? The super rich use their wealth. They use their wealth to get what they want, when they want, how they want, from whom they want, at the expense of the poor, the abysmally poor. And so when a multi-billionaire gets ill and needs an organ transplant, they're going to the slums. Rather, they pay people to go into the slums. They hire folks to go into the slums. They have their underground organizations and institutions, medical and otherwise. They identify people based on medical records, and they send their goons to get them out of the slums. And they extract from those bodies what they want. You say money talks and bullshit walks. The super rich uses money to get what they want, when they want, how they want, and from who they want. And so don't be fooled. Do not fail to recognize the nexus between a bill which basically is going to legalize organ harvesting in this country and a bill which is going to steal the nation's money from its citizens. Don't miss that connection. There's a real connection there. A lot of people are talking about Jack Dio looking bad. According to somebody like them old suck out whatever. Maybe Jack Dio needs an organ. Who knows? And the foundation is being laid for Jack Dio to get an organ. It might sound like a conspiracy theory, but knowing this demon according to Norton, you don't put anything beside them. All things are possible under the PPP government, installed or otherwise. I am saying to you, my brothers and sisters, that today is extremely important. Every single human being that has breath, regardless of race, color, or creed, should be in front of the Artichoke Convention Center today. I think they say they start at 8:30. To voice their disagreement with the moves which are currently being made by the installed cabal to not only amend the Natural Resources Fund Act, but altogether throw it out, because that is what I see it as. That is what I see it as. Throw it out. And have their way. One caller yesterday raised the question. And you see, he sent me a subsequent voice note to say I didn't address his issue which he raised. But sometimes I try to save my own sanity. Desiderata says, do not compare yourself to others, for they will be less than greater persons. And when you make such comparison, you will either end up vain or bitter. And so sometimes I pay no attention to people and their utterances, because it would force me to compare myself to them. And I would either be vain or bitter. And I don't always like to be vain nor bitter. And so sometimes I just don't pay attention to when they send me these things. But the gentleman not only sent his voice note for the program asking about, or saying that as far as he understands, when the Natural Resource Fund Act was passed, the coalition was a caretaker government. And in short, if they were a caretaker government, that's my interpretation, they had no reason, no right to pass the NRF. And so he is seeing that argument as the basis, he is seeing that fact, he is seeing that situation as the basis on which Jagdeo and the PPP has a right to throw the NRF in its current structure and put in place what they want. Let's just assume that he is correct in that argument. I certainly don't believe that he is correct in that argument. But if one were to assume that he is correct in that argument, are we saying that the Natural Resource Fund Act or Sovereign Wealth Fund Act the likes of what Jagdeo and the PPP are taken to Parliament today is acceptable? Let's forget the Coalition Act. Are we saying that the act that is going to the National Assembly today, the bill that is going to the National Assembly today, is acceptable? First and foremost, oversight. Only 5 persons will have oversight of the country's wealth, the biggest chunk of the country's wealth, the biggest source of the country's wealth, only 5 persons will have oversight of that. And only 1 person gets to pick these 5 persons, according to the Act. Only 1 person. The president picks the 5. The president determines who will be the chairman. As they say, that's a case of trying the devil's case in hell or putting cat to watch milk. Let me tell you what will happen. As I say, under the Jagan government, he took his driver and made him a minister. Let me just take you back into a little into the past. Under the previous PPP government, Jack Dio's government, when they were giving out radio licenses, a whole host of them were given out just before the term of office ended. During that period, which you might call a lame duck, or whatever they call them, I don't remember. Right? Check, do your research, and you will realize that many of those licenses, despite they show up in the public place with names that you may not necessarily associate with the PPP unless you do your research, you will come to realize that at least 3 of those licenses were awarded to very close relatives and friends of Robert Posada and the PPP. You hear what I'm saying? And so when you come to pick this 5, let me just be a little facetious. You're going to get here from Ali, assuming here from Ali is doing the picking. You're going to get here from Ali sister that married to somebody that ain't got the name Ali. You're going to get a cousin that come from some other auntie that certainly didn't marry Ali. You're going to get his great cousin that come from some Douglas mix-up because he cousin married to some black man down the line. Then you're going to get his godmother because she's of Amerindian descent. In short, what you're going to see is a group of people, 5 persons, certainly all bearing different names, maybe different features, but all connected. All connected, if not to Ali, who they say will be doing the choosing, certainly to the PPP, and so they will be right there to just do the PPP's bidding. Can you understand that? Look at the name submitted for the Police Service Commission. And check the connections of all of these people to the PPP. That is exactly what is going to happen if this bill is allowed to be passed in the National Assembly. That is exactly what will happen if this bill is allowed to become law. So forget the argument that the NRF under the coalition was passed during a time when they were supposed to be a caretaker government. Forget that. Let us look at the acceptability. Let us look at the acceptability of the bill in its current state. Is that acceptable? Is it acceptable that as soon as this bill gets passed, into law, this cabal can withdraw every single cent, every blind cent, every green cent out of the NRF to do as it pleases? Is it acceptable? This is a situation, let me give you a comparison. This is abuse to me, domestic abuse. I like to liken it to. A woman lives with her husband. He has put rules in place for the management of his money or the family's money. Wealth which he is building for the future of his children and grandchildren and next generations. And through, for some reason or other, he and his wife can't agree. And they decide to part company. She has control of the funds. But the rules are there under which she can access the funds. The rules set up by her husband, who is perhaps no longer. And this other man comes and tells her, listen, I'm going to be good to your children. I'm going to be good to your household. Give me a chance. Like, take care of your sweetheart. I love you from the day I see you. I love the dust you walk on. I'm going to be good to you. And she took the bait and got married to him. And as soon as she gets married, he says, I will take full control of all the money your husband left. I will decide how it gets spent. Get rid of the rules that he left. Beverly Monroe, if you want me to read what you're typing, you best use the right text. Right? And so here comes this man into your home, broke up everything, take all the money to do as he like. Will you allow that? Will any right-thinking individual allow that? Can you? Will you? I doubt it. And that is what the PPP is attempting to do. All of this wealth that has been accumulating in the Natural Resource Fund. They're watching it all the time and they're telling you, we ain't interfering with it. We're not interfering with that money because we want Guyanese to have a better say into how it is managed. But here they're coming like thieves in the night. On the 29th of December, to say, hey, we're coming for it all. We were just watching it grow. And now that it has reached a point where it is appealing enough, we're coming for it. Are we prepared to allow that? Are our Indo-Guyanese brothers and Amerindo-Guyanese brothers and the Portuguese and Chinese Guyanese, shouldn't all of us, every ethnic group in this country, recognize that what the PPP is about to do is take from every single one of us what we and our offspring rightly deserve for themselves? You saw the primaries this morning. What happened to the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Angola? In fact, talking about that, I got Glenn Lal on a TikTok. I want to share Glenn Lal's TikTok with you. I can't say Glenn Lal is my favorite person. I can't say he's an enemy either, because I don't think we've had any personal matters, personal issues. But I know for a fact, what I can say is that over the years, he's been in the camp of the PPP for whatever reason. Like big businesses, everybody got the everybody got their reasons for being with whom they choose, right? But Glenn Lal has gotten a revelation, if I can call it that. Because you suddenly, you know, like when, was it Saul who got a box off the jackass and became Paul, the persecutor, right? The persecutor suddenly got an awakening, suddenly realized, hey, something is wrong here. And so Glenn has been talking a whole lot about the PPP. Let me share with you in a nutshell what happened to the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Angola. You saw it in a primer this morning. You saw it while I was playing it earlier, those of you who joined early. But just a summary, listen to what Glenn Lal has to say. This is his description. Is there any volume there on this thing? Forgive me, sometimes the technology just beat me bad, you know. Here is Glenn.
I leave my home to make this TikTok especially for you guys. Kick down the door bandits this up. Happy Boxing Day to all of you. I leave my home to make this TikTok especially for you guys. Kick down the door bandits that operate in the wee hours of the morning when you are dead asleep. They come, they beat you, they rob you, they torture you, they kill you, and they go. Our new government is doing the same thing, coming here right now in the wee hours in the morning, come Wednesday the 29th, to pass a law while you sporting and have a good time, that give them no jail time and to steal your oil money. Listen what Angola did. Angola have an oil fund sitting outside, and the government throw away the committees and the laws that govern that oil company. They say it's their money and they have a right to spend it how they feel like do. They throw away the committees, they set laws in place to jail nobody. Here what the minister did. Went and draw 500 million US. Gave it to a company to build a deep water port. When the media found out the deep water port was given to one of the minister's best friends to build, who never built a latrine. When they dig further, they found out that the minister is the owner of the deep water port with the people of Angola money. And when the media go further into that, they realize what the minister did. He guaranteed that investment with the people money on the state. So win, lose or draw, he and his colleagues and his friends will make money for the rest of their life. Just in case this program cut off, they will have a part 2 of it, okay? So please, make sure you follow what I'm saying. This new government now is going to do the same thing with our oil money. Kick out the 2 committees and they will spend money, draw out the money and put it in projects to which will benefit their friends, their family and their people. Yes, our money. And there will be no law whatsoever to jail anybody. That's in the new law they're going to pass on Wednesday. Please come out Wednesday morning and stop this law. Stop it. Happy Boxing Day.
Y'all hear Glenn TikTok in there? Right? You recognize anything? Any similarity to Guyana and the PPP and what was happening or still happening in Angola? Y'all remember Fit Motilal? He was given a contract to build a road, the Amila Falls Road, the road that went to nowhere so far, by a man who never, ever built as much as a walkway. Right? Fit Motilal was given such a grand contract. Taking the nation's money to invest it in things and guaranteeing it on the nation so that friends and cronies get money. Look at the Barbies Bridge. Win, lose, or draw, the investors in the Barbies Bridge who invested the least and are collecting the most will always collect. NIS, which invested the most and is set to collect the least, has never really collected. Those are things to keep in mind. And that was in the previous PPP government. What is happening currently? The bill is going to Parliament today. Oversight, 5 people. I will choose them. I will determine who is their chairperson. And since those 5 people are my minions, my creatures are creatures of me, the PPP. When I say I want to draw out all of the sovereign wealth fund, all of the money, all they will do is put their signatures. Because don't fool yourself, the reward will be fitting for the puppetry. The rewards will be fitting for the puppetry. It might not be there at the highest level, at the highest scale. It is certainly not going to be in quantities similar to what Jack Dio and Irfan Ali and the rest of the TFIM PPP top branch will get. But it will be more than the average citizen will ever get. It will keep them out of abject poverty. And so all they will do is sign. That's what they will do. Because they will sign to keep their cushy position while the nation suffers the losses. This is an abomination. This is more than psychological abuse. Guyanese have to come out and go out there in front of the Artichoke Convention Center, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your political leanings, regardless of if you're PPP or WPA, PNC or GAP, regardless of your political preference. You have to put all of those things aside, religious preference, all of those things aside, and start praying and tell me God gonna change it. Because faith without works is dead. Yes, we have to trust in a supreme being, but we also have to act. And so everybody, every citizen of this country should be in front of the Artichoke Convention Center later today. I say to shout it down, but in my mind I'm saying storm it. Yes, I am saying storm it. Take away the mace. You see what people don't know? Once the mace is absent from Parliament, there can be no Parliament. The National Assembly cannot function without the mace in place. Somebody needs to go in there and break it up. See, I'm inciting. But somebody needs to ensure by any means necessary that that bill doesn't get passed. And if you're talking about democracy and defense of democracy, the great United States, as you all like to say, look what Trump supporters did. When the elections was called for Biden, they stormed. What they call it? Wherever. Was it the Pentagon? I don't pay attention to these people, you know. They stormed it. They saw that as the seat of government, the seat of their oppression. And they stormed it. A couple of people lost their lives, but they made their statement. Capitol Hill. Thank you. And so I'm saying that if it takes Guyanese storming the National Assembly today or wherever it sits to deliberate on that bill, so be it. Broke up the mace. You're going to take time for to get a new one. By then you might get rid of the government. Sometimes you can't get from point A to H immediately, but you can take short steps to getting there. Yes. David, I say undermine the government. I support that call. Now I'm saying undermine the parliament. Stop it from functioning. Because its function is at a disadvantage of the citizens. And when you have systems in place, systems in a country that are not working for the benefit of the masses, then you have to do something about those systems. You have to do something. Something has to be done. Listen, I quote in the Bible again. It says if your right hand offends you, cut it off. Cut it off. And so anything that is standing in the way of a better life for the Guyanese citizens, a better management of our resources, and prudent governance, we have a responsibility. The Bible tells us, it doesn't way, it has bugging you, get rid of it. And so by any means necessary, we have to prevent the Parliament, the National Assembly from acting. Because as a leader of the PNC says, this bill will pass because they have the majority in Parliament. Well, if they ain't got no freaking Parliament, they can't get no vote. And so no bill will pass. Some people call it extremism. You call it what you like. I call it nationalism. We need more nationalists, more patriots in this country. They call it riotous behavior. Well, riotous behavior is necessary. Come on. The PPP understands that riotous behavior is necessary at times. They were extremely riotous when Granger attended that function at the Pegasus. They were extremely riotous when Irfan Ali and his goons attempted to turn over the vehicle with Dr. Karen Cummins inside. So what? Other people can be riotous to make their point? Guyanese, people's power, no dictator. People's power, no dictator. People's power. The power is in the hands of the people. Let us go there in our thousands, hundreds of thousands. You all remember, let me talk about riotous behavior and preventing the Parliament from acting. I don't care. Just know nobody know. That's a KK that came and keep this up. So. You all remember. When the Fisher Bishop was was seeking to have his way in the same National Assembly when Barney Scotland was the Speaker. And the bishop refused to respect the ruling of the Speaker. And the Speaker attempted to put him out of the House. There was riotous behavior. The PPP rioted in Parliament. In short, they broke it up. The police station of Parliament had to call for backup from Brigdan Police Station. Make them call for backup today. Make them call for backup today. And that was a small bunch of goons. It was a small bunch of them, not more than 35. Small bunch of goons. I think they were 33, 65, 32 perhaps. When Region 4 results were being declared at Ashman's building, and they weren't having their way, international observers and actors were among them. Representatives of the international community, including ambassadors, were among them. When they stormed the building and they attempted to kick down the door of the office in which Claudette Singh was. That was riotous behavior. And so what is to say that in the defense of our national patrimony, we can be riotous? Why shouldn't we be riotous? Knowing that if this bill gets passed, we ain't got nothing to get. The PP is going to go right away. Right away into the sunshine with all of the country's sovereign wealth. Is that what we want? Is that what we are prepared to accept? So forget the argument about when the National Resource Fund Act was passed. The APNU administration was a caretaker government. Forget that. Look at what is before you. Look at what is before you. Is that acceptable? Mr. Crawford, I think that's the name of the guy. And by extension, all those who are supporting the PPP and their nonsense. Is that acceptable? It can't be. There's a clause there that says as soon as this bill gets passed, we can withdraw all, the entire balance of what is a sovereign wealth fund, bring it to zero balance. When your account goes to zero balance in a bank, it gets closed. Can't you see that? And so in short, that bill is saying, once it's passed, we got a right to close the account and direct the money wherever we want it. Do you know how much of the nation's wealth have already been directed to wherever the PPP wants it, and nobody can track it, nobody can give a count for it? Up until today, while they tell you that the investors in GT&T who bought the 10% government shares are supposed to be some Chinese or Hong Kong business people, up to now they can't name them. I am saying to you, it is my firm belief that those investors, despite hiding behind Chinese and Hong Kong and all kind of places, are elements of the PPP. They are elements of the PPP. The hundreds of millions of dollars in gold that was smuggled and found, I think, in Curacao. Up until now, they can't tell you who the smugglers were. That was the PPP siphoning off the wealth of the nation, directing it wherever they want it. There are people who are going to play, some people will be uncomfortable. There are people in this country who has information about where the country's wealth was siphoned off to. But in the name of professionalism and in the name of whatever they want to call it, protection of government secret, and whatever they want to call it, they will not reveal that information to you. The State Asset Recovery Agency is now shut down by Anil Nandlal. There were operatives there who were investigating these things. And just as how they found where state lands were being misused by people who had no right to using them, and they reclaimed them for the state, I am putting my head on a block that they must have had other information in terms of the state's resources being mismanaged and misdirected by the PPP. But the nation is not aware of that. Why should we be kept in the dark? The time is now. Those information ought to be revealed to the Guyanese people so they get a clear understanding of this thieving cabal that they're dealing with. There's no need for secrecy and privacy. There's no Sarah. And they'll say, get rid of it. I said we could get rid of it, we could get rid of the secrets. Let's talk about the things that were found while Sarah was in existence. And let Guyanese understand the kleptocrats who are in this installed cabal, and they are trying to make the same magic again with our natural resource fund, our petroleum money. We're going to make it disappear. People trace gold right up to Curacao where it was seized, but they don't know who were the beneficial owners, who were the shippers. They don't know who were the contact person. Shipping has to have a manifest to start with. Somebody had to ship it. Somebody had to be responsible for the ship on which it was found. But citizens are not aware of that. Guyanese, regardless of your color, regardless of your creed, regardless of who you believe in, regardless of who politician or political party you're supporting, your place is in front of, our place is in front of Artichon Convention Center today. We could sit here and we could pontificate all day. We could talk all day on social media, but nothing will change unless we turn up in front of the National Assembly. Don't worry, the barriers that the 10 Akins that put up from Sherry Street and from UG Road, push them down! Push them down! Akins is a non-enforcer for the PPP. He was there when the three were killed on the Linden Bridge. Let him kill more Guyanese. If that is what the police force thinks that they should be doing, the ranks of the force, kill Guyanese is standing up in defense of Guyanese patrimony, let them kill people. But we must resolve in our minds that anybody who loses blood or life today in this struggle to defend the national patrimony, they will not lose it in vain. That must be our resolve. They will try to use fear against us, bullyism, force, but we must have a resolve that whatever we face today, must not be in vain. People must be made to pay for it. People must be made to pay for it. It is the legitimate right of citizens to defend their national patrimony. And anybody who stands in the way of that defense must be seen as the enemy of the people. The police is there to maintain law and order. Fair enough. Law and order. We want law and order. But we will not and we must not, we ought not to stand for brutality. And so if they're going to come with brute force and ignorance or arrogance today to prevent citizens protesting this injustice which is about to be handed down to them, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's my message to you today. Join me. Join us. Represent yourself and family and your next generations. In front of our Atachong Convention Center is the place to be today. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Let us stop this daylight robbery. Let us put a stake in the wheels of the PPP. Stop this runaway train. Protect your national patrimony. Protect your inheritance. It is already being squandered. But the little that is left of it, let us stand in defense of it so that we can get in our ounce of flesh. That's all I want to say to you. In our ounce of flesh. Might not be a pound anymore. But if we are going to settle for an ounce, let us settle and defend it. Call A Live, good morning.
Good morning, Kodaki and the viewers. This situation has gone beyond that point where it seems almost impossible to recant. But I am saying this. If Guyana's patrimony can't go for the majority of Guyanese, then the selected few should not be able to enjoy anything. Time for destruction. So if one can get, none can get. That's the point we beat at. Destroy, just destroy. So nobody must benefit. Because it is unfair with what these criminals in the PPP are doing. It is so unfair. If one can get, none can get. End the story.
Caller, did you get disconnect? Caller?
You make up the mind. You do it the way the majority would look forward for it to be done, so nobody benefits. Because it is unfair for one set of people getting all this thing and nobody else gets. Destroy so nobody gets in the story. We'll start back from scratch whenever that time comes. It's so blasted unfair, man. It's wickedness to the highest. Thank you, Kodaki.
Thank you for calling. Voice note.
Good morning, Kodaki. What I want to say is whether or not the bill was passed during the caretaker government, it was a good bill. It had checks and balances. They're not looking at the content of the bill. That make me believe it wasn't about the bill, it's about control. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. Lines remain on 6225933 is the number to call. Voice note.
You see, when Amanza came out and said these people are mentally lazy, right? They don't think for themselves, wherever.
Call all the line.
A4 and Barajag, you say they're wrong with it. All of these months, over a year, this thing in place. Why they never had no objection to it? Why this thing never come up? Or the government was a caretaker government, so it was wrong what they did and all these things. But Still, the government is a caretaker government, and the opposition back then used to collect all the salary. You know, they don't think for themselves. These people come to say one thing and they run and jump with it.
Thank you. Kale Live, good morning.
Morning, Kadaki, morning, Guyana. I express the sentiments you talked about in reference to breaking things up, and to let the Guyanese people know that the PPP party is basically a corrupt mafia-style party. If we have looked over the years of what they've done, it's basically out of a movie, with their corruptness, their brutality, and basically it's a mafia-style organization. And Guyanese need to rise up, get out there, rain, shine, or not. And please, Guyanese, just get up, go and stand up for your right. But if there's no show out there today, they would have already knew how we are and what type of people we're dealing with. And if we don't come out there in numbers, every other thing is going to be rammed at us. I mean, they already have stolen so much money. And the African Guyanese are simply collecting pittance compared to what they've already shaven off the top. This bill that they're about to ram through is only going to be in a select few hands. And I just urge my Guyanese brethren and sistren, even some of the Indians, that they seems to not say anything about this bill, but they just go along with everything that this murderous gang proposes and stay quiet. And we'll see who's out there to actually protest this horrendous thievery that they're about to perpetuate in us. And that's my take.
Thank you. Lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. Guyanese, arise.
Morning, Kadaki.
Arise. At the Chum Convention Center is the destination. The mission, prevent that bill from being heard, much less passed. If you only allow it to be heard and passed, can't eat your dinner. Call Live, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Kadaki. Good morning to the listening public. This runaway train should have been stopped before now. You see, the leader of the opposition, he's got himself to be blamed, partially for this. Because these things would have never happened if this runaway train was stopped before. But right now, I'm calling on all our Guyanese brothers and sisters from every divide in this country. Let us go out there in our numbers, from Linden, from Berbice, from East Coast, West Coast. Let us go out there and stop this nonsense that these PPP want to go ahead with. Because we, in this country, we're going to left with nothing. With all this hope of the wealth from this oil, we are going to be left with nothing. This thing is not about race. This is not about color. This is about one set of people who's trying to enrich themselves. And we have got to stop this thing right now. Right now, we have got to stop it. And I'm calling on all our Guyanese brothers and sisters to go out there and give their support to stop this thing. That's my contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Run the line, girl. Sorry, I forgot to add you on the line. So you can call back when it suits you. 6225933 is the number to call. The lines are open. Call it live, good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. Good show. Kadaki, everyone need to run out there today. Run, walk, jump, skip, and everything to stop that runaway train. And that caller just said it was absolutely right. This should have been stopped. Mr. Arman was just crawling and I don't know what he was doing. But let him see it. Let him take it in his pipe and smoke it now. What are you going to tell us? What can he say to us now when the runaway train is looking to take all what we have gotten? What I save up for us. We can't get it now because the runaway train is loose and wild. They don't care about us. All they care about is they getting the biggest pie. And when you walk in the street, they can walk and push up themselves up in the air. And then you got to look down to them. But you don't have to look down to them because be contented with what little God have granted to you. So Kadaki, great job and keep it up. And everybody, I'm calling on everybody, boy, girl, whoever, if you can't walk, get somebody carry you down there and be your presence. This is history. History today. Make history come out because our foreparents did it for us. So we need to go out there. We can't come, but go out there. Be doing other things. Get out there. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call you. Tune to the Buxtonian Morning Time. Arise, Guyanese. Arise, arise. Get up off your laurels. Let's go to the convention center and shut the parliament down. This bill must not be heard. It must not be passed. The Guyanese patrimony must be protected at all costs by every means necessary. Any means necessary. Call it live, good morning.
Today is a day when we have got to be conscious. Now, in front claim that the bill was being signed when no confidence motion was already in making this government can't do certain business. But if we are to look, the PPP installed government is under investigation. There is a court petition, in the court to state the validity of the government. And they are doing all these things. Nobody's stopping them, you know. They are under investigation. They still need that petition to be heard to say whether they are legal or not. So they, as an illegal government, should these things, these bills, all these bills, and so that they are producing and trying to pass, should not become law. And I agree with the caller that the leader of the opposition was sleeping all the time. Now yesterday, to my surprise, he got up and said, oh, we got to go and protest. When he had the railer, he was the man of the business. He put his foot down on protest. But suddenly now, when we get a new leader of the party, he's jumping up and putting himself out in front to show that he is to protest. This is a time when Harmon should stand down. Let Norton do what he has to do as a leader. Norton is a man for protest. Harmon was never for protest. So I don't know why Harmon put on his suit and talking about things. He, in charge of the APNU party, should have been a stronger leader and not allow the installed regime to get through with what they are doing. When it comes to the sovereign wealth fund and this bill that they are trying to pass, that is it in India. You look at places like Bollywood, Kashmir, Bombay, Delhi, where the rich Indians live. they have the slum areas. People living in pipe in them slum area. People suffering from all diseases, especially cholera. They suffer because the conditions under which they live. And those people in the slum areas are allowed to live there to be the kind. Oh gosh, that's the thing. What it does, make people rear them to suffice for the loans for the rich. Whenever the rich get sick, can't get children, they take everything from them. Now Guyana is trying to reduce certain fractions of people into a slum area so that they could harvest, got them as thing, just preparing to fight their body when their body cannot produce what they got to do. Because when you see craving for money, God does make certain you got all the wealth and you have no health. And that is what God is going to do to them. Now, just how we're coming now, when Barrett was president, they talk about road models. We have lost two great ones, Bishop Tutu and Professor Long. He tried to, Ramson talk about road model. Barrett look at the party roots, where the actor in roots decided after going through the whole thing of how we came to the New World, the Western Hemisphere, to trace back his roots to Africa, which he did. Barrett, watch the picture, you know. That's road model for Ramson. And he decided to go back to India to find his roots. And he said he finds some great-grand something in the slums of India. And when Barrett Jagyo came back to Guyana, after tracing his roots in the slums of India, and that is to show that these people, these good people who come here, came from the slums. You're going to go into Delhi, Kashmir, or one of them high-ranking places, because they didn't come here as indentured laborers. God, they're too rich to come down here for work, for get money. Anyway, he came back and he brought this Zika virus to Guyana. Barrett bring the hair from his family in the slums. So when Ramson talk about road model, this road model, we lead, but they try to follow. And with all they try to follow, they can't pass us. Last thing. Now I could remember, Dr. Hines might remember that. Now you could, Doctor, you too small. We used to save money to get to buy this thing when named carbon. You go and you buy a penny carbon, so you're saving up all them old Ovaltine and Milo tin. You borrow a hole at the bottom, you spit on the carbon, you roll it, and you got somebody with a light in the hole, and you get them bomb. We grew up with them. Now the PPP in power. Diwali was never something celebrated with bombs. Now they stop it, they put the number ban as they are in power. When is Diwali, you lit bomb, and when it's Christmas time and all years, it's a crime for black people, Africans, to lick it to celebrate. Something has got to be done. That is my comment today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, caller. Lines remain on 6225933 is the number to call. And Rhonda, I know about carbon. Right? I know about carbon. Voice note.
Morning, Miss Kadaki. I agree everybody should put on the boots and get out there, long boots and umbrella. Get out there, full the streets, lock down everything. Now is the time. If now is not the time, when will be the right time? Another thing, Mr. Armand came out and said during his campaign, he can't do certain things because he don't have the power. That's straightforward. He doesn't have the full power, and he need the full power. It so happened that Norton is the leader of the party. He would never get full, Mr. Armand would never get full power. Now, he's telling the people that he still wants to be there. If you tell the people in the forest place you don't have the full power to have no powerful effect on PPP, why are you staying there? You don't have the power. Give Harmon the position now. For the Harmon, do we have to do? Because you yourself say you don't have the power to do it. You don't have the full power. So you can't affect change. So why you holding the people of Guyana to ransom for $200,000 as the opposition leader? But anyhow, your name can't all the time with money. So do your thing.
I think the caller meant Norton there. Give Norton the leader of the opposition so he can do what has to be done. Caller live, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Kadaki?
Beep. Move on. Thank you. Caller.
Good morning.
Good morning, you're live.
Good morning, sir, to you and your listeners and all Guyanese in all walks of life. If we don't get it, today's the one day they better get it right. If they do not come out of the house crawling, walking, limping, this bill should not get the opportunity to be heard today. If we gotta shut out the light in the Arthur Chang Center, shut out the water, lay down in front of the gates. This shit has to stop. It has to stop today. If it's not stopped today, Guyanese might well not shut off everything and broke up the whole fucking... Look,
Caller, watch your language.
I am sorry, but I'm very passionate about this damn bill, man. It has to stop, Kadaki, it has to stop. That's my contribution, sir.
Thank you for coming through. Six two two 593 is the number to call. The lines remain open. You tune to the BUXTONIAN morning time. Call and let's talk the thing. Voice note.
Good morning, Kadaki and listeners. Disruption must start with the lawmakers in the National Assembly. There's where the disruption must start.
I certainly agree. Whatever is done in Parliament is done in Parliament. You get parliamentary privilege. If the PPP goons could have broke it up and carry it, the coalition goons, as they are usually referred to, must also broke it up and call thief. Pickpocket. That is what is about to happen in the National Assembly. Daylight robbery. I said we broke it up and all for thief. What I gonna do? Come for me? Who cares? Call it live, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Officer, and the listening public. This entity, baby Satan, I call him a thing. He's not human. He's relentless. And he's doing everything in his power to take away the pride and dignity of Guyanese. This bill has to be stopped in every form, shape, and fashion. Guyanese throughout the diaspora call in. Guyanese living at home need to come out and protest vigorously against this bill. We cannot allow our future to be sabotaged by this reckless, wicked regime. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Voice note.
I'm finally happy that, Guyanese is going to decide to stand against this installed regime. Yes, it is great. But I want to know one thing. If it's a national shutdown, we get in areas of a one-day shutdown, because this country needs a national shutdown until the PPP could come to the knees. Rhonda, don't worry up yourself about Harmon, because we know that Harmon is not around with we. We know that Harmon is just on the sideline. Norton is the man will be forwarding, and Norton is the man will be listening forward to know where forward we move in.
The lines remain home. 6225933 is the number to call. It's now 8 hours 33. We have about 27 minutes. At around this time, people should start assembling at the convention center. People should start assembling. The parliamentarians should be out there. The opposition representatives should be out there by now. Marshalling the forces. I don't think this is a day for parliamentarians to go into parliament. They can go in, but under different circumstances. They must go in with the people behind them. The people behind the parliamentarians. All.
Hello.
Quality life.
Morning.
Morning.
Close Guyano down. That's the only way these people come in. Close Guyano down. Morning.
Short and to the point. Close Guyana down. Parliamentarians going into parliament. Forget COVID regulation right now, quite frankly. The people must join them. And we must create a stink, a ruckus in the convention center. That bill must not be heard. That bill must never be heard. If we allow that bill to be heard and passed, y'all hear what I'm saying? If we allow that bill to be heard and passed, cat eat our dinner. Regardless of race, color, and creed, cat will eat our dinner. Voice note.
Hi, good morning, Kadaki. Season's greetings to everyone. I would like for everyone to call on the police force as well. Those right-thinking police officers, you know, they can disguise because, you know, you have to wear your mask. Disguise. Put on your civilian clothes. Dung tools, dung arms, and go out there. This is not for us alone. This is for the all Guyanese. Your future, your children, your grandchildren, your parents, etc., etc. I remember when the PNC used to go and protest. All the shops on Regent Street used to close up. Oh, the protesters coming, shut the place down. That's my contribution today.
Thank you for that voice note. Let me tell y'all something. Y'all like talk about Hickens? Hickens is the least of me worries. Karim Bash is the least of me worries. Brutus is the least of me worries. You know my worries are with the ordinary ranks, the constables, and the lance corporals, and the corporals, and the sergeants, and the inspectors, and to some extent the ASPs. Those are the people who they send on the front line to face citizens. And I am saying to these police ranks this morning, you will be on the front line. You will have to decide what is done and what is not done. The most they could do to you is transfer you from one division to the other. That's all they can do. You will get transferred, but then what? Is being transferred too much of a sacrifice to make for a national good? I say not. I say not. And so I'm encouraging you officers, I'm encouraging you ordinary ranks. Do what you know is the right thing and let the protesters protest. Let the protesters protest. This bill must be stopped in its tracks. Today, not tomorrow, today. Because if you allow it to go past today, trust me, your tomorrow will be dismal. Voice note.
Sir, good morning to all of you. I would like to see after today, that the Guyanese people must come out and get a protest so they could get Armand to remove and give the right person who they choose to be the leader and do his job. Armand has a chance. He failed. If the people that need him there, they would have fought for him. He wasn't elected by the people. He was placed there by Mr. Grady. The people elect a leader, Ghanaians elect a leader, and Armand didn't need to step aside. If he don't want to step aside, they should force him out by protest him. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Korea Live, good morning. Please turn on your device. Caller, you're live. Good morning.
Good morning, Kidaki. Kidaki, you see all the using the policemen they wait but 3 days before they know they got passed the bill, we give them a raise, bribe them, go and do the nasty dirty work. That's how the PPP operates. All the time they know they want to give the people they want salary. They wait till they want to pass the bill, then they will give them the bribe. There's a bribe to go and shoot down the only black people. That's all.
Thank you, caller. 7% on the monthly bonus. Is that what you're valued? Is that what your citizens' lives are valued? Policemen you shall determine, and women. Call your life, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Now, this morning I heard you mention about COVID. Now, my thing on this COVID and this bill that's supposed to pass, you stand a better chance of surviving COVID than surviving this bill.
Indeed.
So I believe that people need to forget about this COVID and just fight with every energy that we have to prevent this bill. Because when they install cabal, once they do anything, they forget about COVID. They just do what they gotta do. So I believe that today is the day that people in Guyana should really come out and fight. Because trust me, Kadak, anytime we lose this bill today, whatever is going to take place is going to be worse than COVID. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling. Lines remain open. 622-5933 is the number to call. Voice notes.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. I'm calling on all the soldiers and police, their wives, daughters, children, to plead with their fathers and their mothers and their daughters not to go.
Hold the line, please.
Okay.
Yes, this voice note is making a lot of sense, but I want to make a suggestion. Today is the day the wives of police and soldiers and their children should be on the line. And so their husbands and fathers can't think. The presence of their relatives must be the reason for them to think. So y'all come out on the line. Police Wives Association, come out. Military Wives Association, come out. Y'all join the Guyanese people in solidarity against this nasty, dirty, stinking bill. Call your life. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. You know, I want to remind us about when the PPP was in opposition, they were allowed to protest until this fraud president, he was allowed to go by a minister's vehicle and order their supporters to flip the vehicle over. Can you remember that?
Certainly, I spoke about it earlier.
Huh? So why now they're in government and we're not allowed to protest? Why can't we get to protest this installed regime? Our government have been forced on our people, and we mustn't say anything about whatever wrongs they've been doing to us. We must just accept it. Accept whatever they're saying, accept whatever they're doing, and not to able to do anything to rise up against the wrong. We must accept everything that they're dishing out to us. Where the democracy is at? Where is the democracy for our people? must be flat for them. No, it mustn't be that way. We must be able to stand up for our rights. And this bill, it is going to be, it's going to be suffering for our people in years to come. And we must understand this. And we must be given the right to fight for our rights in this country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, caller. Lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. Voice note.
Sir, good morning to all of you. I would like to see after today, that the Guyanese people must come out and get a protest so they could get Armand to remove and give the right person who they choose to be the leader and do his job. Armand has a chance. He failed. If the people that need him there, they would have voted for him. He wasn't elected by the people. He was placed there by Mr. Granger. The people elect a leader, Guyanese elect a leader, and Armand didn't need to step aside. If he don't want to step aside, they should force him out by protest him. Thank you. Good morning to you again.
Thank you, caller. Lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. Voice note.
Kadaki morning. I understand when you test positive for COVID, you're getting 5 days instead of 14.
Lines remain open. You're tuned to the BUXTONIAN morning time. It is now 8 hours 46. 6225933 is the number to call. Call and let's talk the thing. Meanwhile, if you're not heading there already, preparations should be made. You should be preparing to head down to the Arthur Chung Convention Center to join the protest against the thieving bill. Right? The daylight robbery bill, because that's all I can see it as. The PPP planning to fetch away Guyanese patrimony. They want the bill to pass to carry away all of the sovereign wealth fund. As soon as the bill gets passed, they can withdraw all, zero balance the account, close it down, do as they like with the money. No oversight.
Hi, Kedaki. Forces will be concentrated around the Arthur Chung Convention Center. My suggestion is that those who cannot make it to the convention center should make every roadway in Guyana impassable. Bring out all old houses, old tires, old cars, old trucks, and shut the entire roadways down.
Indeed, caller, I certainly agree with that recommendation. You know, I sat here and I was thinking, listen, at the Chung Convention Center, they're going to flood it with police and so on. That place will be impenetrable, perhaps. But the East Coast Road will not be. And so people should block it. While they're focusing on blocking you, you should focus on blocking the East Coast Road, blocking the East Bank Road, blocking the Essequibo Road. Just keep blocking. And let us see how this will end. Call your live, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Very wonderful show. I want to know what's wrong with Guyanese. What's wrong with you people? Remember, the administration is illegal. They were installed. So you should not allow this bill to pass. You have to remember, they were installed. It's nothing legal with them. The administration is not legal. So get your butts out there and stop this bill. Take it what it will. Get it done. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Call and let's talk the thing. Don't let them spirit away your patrimony. Don't let them do that. Do not allow these thieves and kleptocrats to pass this bill. Because when that bill gets passed, it's the last you will see of your patrimony. You notice, under the Granger administration, you used to get updates as to how much money is in the NRF. When last were you told how much money is in the NRF? I certainly haven't heard it recently. So right now I don't even know how many billions, hundreds of billions, these thieves are attempting to cart away. Call your life, good morning.
Brother Kadaki, good morning.
Good morning.
This country has to be shut down. Block all the roadways, all the bridges. They want to concentrate the police in one area, make them be running all over the place. Tires with fire. Okay? We got to shut that country down. That's the limit. We can't allow them. We cannot allow them to pass that bill. We cannot allow them to even hear that bill. And another thing, Joe Harmon must pack his bags and go. He is an impediment to progress in that country. That man have no shame. He said he cannot function because he needs the position of leader, and he needs the position of opposition leader and leader of the party. He did not get it. Norton won him with a landslide victory. A landslide. And in a landslide victory, give him a mandate to put the PPP in place and in check. Harmon is compromised. He has to go. My brother, that's my take.
Thank you. Six two two 5933 is the number to call. Call and let's talk the thing. It's now 8 hours 51. Remember? Is somebody on the line still? The program comes to you with the kind compliments of Kidam's Idol Fish Shop Bar and Grill. Sideline down Buxton North. You're looking for a place to calm down your spirit later. Old years, New Year's, whenever. Come on down. Nice relaxing environment. Affordable prices. Good atmosphere. Call in live, good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. We might not like the messenger in the name of Glenn Khan, but I think that video that Glenn Khan made should hit around the entire place for people to really understand, for the small man to really understand what is about to take place. And as callers have been saying, all the roads should be blocked. Let the police have an easy job at the convention center, right? And let the roads be blocked. Nobody will be going there. Let no one go there. We want everything. We gotta do everything in our power. Every single thing in our power. And we're gonna get them helter-skelter. When things start burning every place, yes, police gonna move from convention center to go and help there. They're gonna bring police from Skeldon everywhere and helicopter in everybody that they want to take in. Let us destabilize the place this morning. It is needed. It is needed. Have a good day, my brother.
Thank you, caller. 6225933 is the number to call. We have just about 7 minutes to program time. Call and let's talk the thing. And you people should be getting yourselves ready. Let's go down to the convention center. Shut it down. Those of you who can't go to convention center, shut down the roads, the main thoroughfares, so nothing gets in, nothing gets out. Let's give these people a third time and prevent that bill from passing. If that bill passes, we only have ourselves to blame. Don't tell me anything about them having majority in parliament. The parliament should not function. Broke up the mess. Make the speaker run. morning.
Good morning, Amsterdam. Good morning. Today is the day for the Guyanese to know whether the opposition gonna really perform. Now, my concern is if the opposition will be going into Parliament, putting the presence there in Parliament. That is my concern. Because after then, they don't go there. These people are going to be answerable for whatsoever to do if this bill passes. You know, because I hear one of them from the AFC there at below the belt and these type of shows that they got, saying that they got into Parliament, saying everything that is right, but they're going to put the presence there in Parliament to legitimize this nonsense that the PPP going to do with these people money, with the Guyanese money. So today is the day to see, we're going to see whether this opposition got anything in them, or they're thinking positive, that they're really thinking positively. That is my concern. Do not go into Parliament. Opposition shouldn't be thinking about putting the foot in Parliament. They should be out on the street with the people, with whoever or how much of the people is out here. That is my concern, and that is my say today. I am looking to see whether or not the opposition will go in there. Not going to allow these members to go in there.
Thank you, caller.
You know, because anytime you sit down in there, this bill going to be real. All right, thanks.
Why it's not?
Today it starts from today. You gotta use Barajagdio term. Make the PPP and the country ungovernable. This way you gotta do.
Voice note.
Yes, Kodaki again. That is so true. They could block the road. That would be a better arm struggle and thing. Because they think got problem because Guyana only got few roads going. So when you block one road, you do business. Let it drive through to the rice bed and the back dam to meet to the center. Block the road.
Good morning, Kadaki. Today is not a day for us to look at races. Amerindians, the Indians, the blacks, all the races, all the 6 races need to get up and go out there. And the police and the army, they all need to come together and storm that place down.
Hold the line.
Take over that country. The police and the army need to get together. Don't, because once they do that, they got the country under control. You will be taking care of your generations, your children, your children's children. Don't allow the PPP to take away what you guys have earned. Storm the place. Police and the army, y'all get together and storm, because I can't stop y'all will have control over that country. I said that.
Call you live. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. When we see Mr. Glenn Lal and Brian Max come out against his government, we know things is really bad. Guyanese, we disagree on a lot of stuff, but this one, we want the international community to understand. We are not in agreement with Barajapio. And Barajapio, if he have any decency remaining in him, he will see and he will know that the Guyanese people are not in favor of this bill. So how can you force something upon us that we are not in agreement with? And I am playing to our Guyanese people, the ones who are in the struggle, the ones who get a 7% that they're not happy with, come out and protest today. Send this government a message. Let them know that together we stand, united we stand, together we fall. If we have to fall, then fine, so let it be. But today, if we never stand for anything Guyanese, let us stand for this. Let us send a message to Barajapio and whoever is in his milking of the Guyanese people money. Let them understand that today is the day we stand up. We will stand up and fight.
We will not back down from Barrett because we, the Guyanese people, are not in favor of this bill, and we are very passionate about it. So whatever we have to do, whatever form of protest we have to do, let us do it together, Guyanese. Let us stand against this corrupt cabal and let them know that we're not in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. Amsterdam. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, caller. I'll take one more call. It's a minute to the 9 o'clock hour, so we'll take one more call. Caller live, good morning.
Yes, Mr. Kadaki. For the caller who want to know who want to know whether the opposition would be in Parliament, last night Mr. Mahi Paul, he said yes, they will be in Parliament to debate the bill. And he also made mention of people in the private sector who have been calling him. He did not give any name. He did not state any name. That was on the last night program with Sherrod Duncan that Glenal was on, stating that they are against the passage of this bill. So Guyanese people need to wake the hell up. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. One of the problems I have with people in this country, especially public figures, is they don't like call names. If there are people in the private sector calling you to tell you they're against the bill, let them come out and support the protest. The private sector is part of the problem we got in this country. They are all about protecting their financial interests with this wicked and vindictive cabal. So they don't criticize them publicly. They always look for somebody to do it for them. They want somebody to be their stooge. Somebody must speak on behalf of the private sector. So you got big business. You're in bed with the PPP. You don't like what they're doing, but instead of telling them you don't like what they're doing, you call Mr. Amsterdam. Mr. Amsterdam, you got a Facebook show. Must tell them this and tell them that. The private sector has a role to play. Civil society has a role to play. And until such people are willing to come out and play publicly, they will continue to be a part of the problem. Final call for the day. Call your life.
Morning, Karaki. If by chance the parliamentarians got to go into the parliament today, well, at the town conference center, they need to disrupt the bill passing in there. If it's that the police blocking persons that cannot get in, right? If they cannot get past a certain part and the ministers are already in there, go in and disrupt the parliament. Christopher posted something this morning in Parliament of another country. They need to do that. Disrupt it. Make the speaker run, as you said before. Make everybody run. I don't care where you're shy, you shy. They can't lock up everybody. And if they lock up all the opposition ministers, we can put together money and get them bail. They ain't going to put everybody on $5 million or $3 million like with the do Jordan. And Mr. Nightfall, I don't know what is it with him, but he needs little prayers. God forgive. But I was angry with Max last night when he went on the program and talked, but then when I sit and I actually listen to what he was saying, it really had nothing to do with race and political party and so on. He was right. Indeed, and I'm so sorry that he got disconnected because Mark wanted to ask him how he actually feels, and that was one of my questions. How you feel supporting a government like this that is actually shooting you now? I think he probably would have gotten some position. He thought he would have gotten some position. I don't know, but I'm not sorry for him, but I'm glad that he's standing up finally to say something for the Guyanese. Thank you much, Kadaki.
Thank you, caller. You know, sometimes when I listen to some parliamentarians and the reasons for going to parliament and so on, I say they like academic stuff. They believe in academia. Nothing is wrong with academia. But how much does it benefit the nation if you were to go in and argue against this bill just so that your arguments get onto the national answer, gets into the Hansard? just to show that, let the record show, we objected. At the end of the day, the bill can pass. But if you were to break up the National Assembly, the bill can pass. It can't even be debated. It can't even be discussed. My position remains, if parliamentarians are going into parliament, they must go with all the people behind them. They must go with all the people behind them. And so they're going with a show of force that we ain't for this bill. And today we ain't in the mood for hearing discuss. Today we ain't supporting any discussion. That's all. Right? That's all. Being absent from Parliament for a day is not going to do anything to your parliamentary membership. You ain't going to lose pay. Even if you lose a day pay, let's say, small sacrifice. Politics, representing the people. I note I changed from politics to representing the people because representing the people is not necessarily politics. And all politicians don't necessarily represent the people. Representing the people calls for a willingness to make major sacrifices. I am calling on the parliamentarians today. Step forward. Be counted among those who are willing to sacrifice. And I'm calling on citizens. Come out and support the parliamentarians who are willing to sacrifice. Let us shut this thing down. That's my final call. Let us shut it down. By the hook or the crook, by all means necessary. What will happen? Let it happen one time. Have a great day, y'all. Be safe, but don't be cowardly. Goodbye.